Welcome to the Realizations Podcast. I'm Andrea Gordon, your host, and I'm excited to explore the world of real estate with you. In a world where perceptions often overshadow reality, Realizations seeks to redefine what it means to be a realtor. Join me as we peel back the layers of the industry, uncovering inspiring stories and celebrating the good in real estate. Whether you're a homeowner, a fellow realtor, or simply curious, this podcast is for you. Welcome to Realizations, where perceptions meet reality. Let's dive right in. Welcome, everyone. I am here with the wonderful Pierre Galant, and he is going to talk to us a little bit today about photography, which is one of the types of vendors that realtors deal with all the time. So we're going to try and get a little bit of information around photography, and also just because I'm trying to educate the public about real estate, what we do, why what we do is important, why we are of value, because I feel like our value has been affected tremendously in the recent past by these lawsuits and all this, stuff where different companies want to come in and do an end-to-end platform and sort of get real estate agents out of the way. They're trying to grab at the low-hanging fruit of our commissions. And I want people to understand what all is involved in being a full-scale realtor and all the different walks of life that we come in contact with on a regular basis and the sorts of things we always have to think about. So Pierre, wonderful to see you today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. You're based out of Pasadena and you handle photography. That's better. You handle photography all over Los Angeles and do vacation homes for people. And I wanted to talk to you a little bit today about your past, how you became a photographer for real estate and other things. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
So yeah, I started, and it's funny that you mentioned those hanging fruit companies, because I was working for Zip Realty at the time, which was a company that one of those internet real estate companies.
Right.
And so we were not very well liked around the Asian community at the time, I remember. But still, it was a really fun atmosphere to work around. And then we ended up being bought by Coldwell Banker, so it became more
old-fashioned. From the small to the enormous. I worked for Coldwell Banker for like 8 years. I know the company really, really well. So explain that a little bit about why Zip Realty wasn't liked by the agent community. And by the way, there's a huge agent community. All of us are colleagues. We all see each other at tour. We all go caravan together. We all know one another because we're all selling each other's listings or selling, to one another. Tell us a little bit about what happened with Zip Realty and the agent community.
Back then, the perception was, oh, it's internet, therefore there should be a discount. There was kind of that, oh, the internet is going to save you money kind of thing. So we were discounting our commission, and the buyers will get a slice of the commission.
Sort of like Redfin does?
Like Redfin.
Okay.
And the perception for the agent community was that we were, well, first of all, undercutting their commission. And the perception was also, oh, if you get an internet agent, they're not going to do any of the work. As the listing agent, I'm going to have to do the work also of the buyer. So
right.
So that was the perception at the time, and it's funny because that's where I started, and now with my photography, I wanted to attract the agents who do not want to cut their commission at all. I want to work with the agent who wants to charge 7% commission.
Well, I mean, it's the thing about commission, and it's an old worn adage. If you don't fight for your own value, how are you going to fight for your seller? So when you are
exactly.
when you're giving your commission away, then what you're doing is saying to the seller, I feel slightly unworthy. And
Mm,
it also means that in a similar situation where a buyer or a seller is negotiating back and forth, you're not going to be strong for your clients. So people that hold on to their commission are actually some of the better agents out there because they actually know how
yeah.
to advocate for themselves and others.
Well, yes, because the first thing your first negotiation of the whole transaction is your commission. So if you can't
Exactly.
negotiate that, what else are you going to negotiate? So
Exactly. And now with the new regulations that are in place, you're having to have a very uncomfortable conversation with your buyer because it used to be that the seller would pay the whole commission. Now
yeah,
that's not clear at all. You have to make sure that your buyer is willing to pick up your commission in the event that the seller doesn't agree to pay one.
yeah,
It would have probably been a lot more simple if the DOJ had said buyers pay their agents and sellers pay their agents, but they didn't do that. And so now we have this weird gray area where agents are going to be feeling in relationship to their clients, say who are buyers, that maybe the seller counters their offer and the difference between their offer and what could be acceptable might be your commission. And you have to definitely sink
hmm
really deep into your own belief in your own worth to make sure that you get paid for incredibly hard work that we do.
hmm
So tell us how you got into photography. I really want to hear about it.
So yeah, so at that time, and I remember we were trained to take our own pictures by the company when I
Oh my
first,
God. Okay.
and it was really bad. So we ended up having some photographers, but they were not very good in general, and I was frustrated and I wanted to get that editorial feel
Mm-hmm.
because I could see the rise of social media. I could see the impact of, okay, it's not just documenting a house. You're not just showing
Mm-hmm.
four walls. You have to tell a story about the lifestyle. And more
Mm-hmm.
importantly, you have to tell a story about your own brand. Because the
Mm-hmm.
photos are not just there to photograph a listing for the sellers. It's also the photography hopefully will create a brand for you around the neighborhood. So the sellers might see, oh wow, this is this is the agent I want to go with.
Mm-hmm.
Among everything else, right? It's just one more little thing that you can add to your business to make it that much better.
Sure.
And
Yeah.
this day and age, it's all about image. I mean, you have to produce as agents, you have to be a content creator, basically.
Yes. Absolutely.
So that's pretty much my philosophy right now is go onto a home and try to squeeze as much content possible for
Mm-hmm.
the agent.
Mm-hmm. Tell the story of the house and attract
Story
the
of the house,
person.
story of the lifestyle. So I say, don't
Mm-hmm.
shoot a house, I shoot a lifestyle. Not just document a house, you have to interpret the
Mm-hmm.
house.
Mm-hmm.
And hopefully you'll have a nice or a deep enough connection with your client, the real estate agent, that you understand their branding.
Right. Right.
And I feel like that's a discussion that doesn't happen often enough. So I'm trying to get to that point where I want to understand exactly how you get your business and what your brand is about, and I can
Mm-hmm.
cater to that.
That's super cool. Yeah, a long time ago I worked, well, I worked in theater. I ran theater companies and I'm a theater director. I still work in theater and I
Mhm.
also do some film and some TV.
Okay.
And when I was working entirely in theater, I always had to have a day job. It's the cardinal rule of theater is you keep your day job. So I worked in advertising
Okay.
and I was a casting director for a couple of different agencies and I really, really began to appreciate what it is that advertising agencies do, how they do create a brand. And at the very beginning of my process, I did a Venn diagram with a wonderful person to come up with what was intersecting with the kind of clientele I wanted to bring to myself and what I brought to the table for that sort of clientele.
Mhm.
And basically, it came out that I was kind of like the rich hippie realtor. Um, and I've stuck to that now for 27 years, and it's served me very, very well. I think you attract the clients that you deserve, but the thing is, if you don't take the time to actually think through those things, you're not going to be able to as efficiently attract those people towards you through your visuals, through your online marketing, through all of that. And what you're talking about, you're really, really kind of just reaffirming everything that I know to be true about photography. In my entire career, I've always hired excellent photographers because it's your brand out there. When you put a photograph out, if you know, everybody has looked through the multiple listing service and seen houses with bathrooms where the toilet seats are up and where, there's garbage in the corner or some such. And it basically
Yes.
it's saying, I don't care about the image of this property. I don't care about the image that this property looking the way that it does reflects on me. So photography is key and crucial.
And along those lines, sometimes people will hire me for some homes, but not others. And
Hmm.
I feel like that's kind of a mistake. I think you should have a consistent
A look
look.
to it. Yes.
So whether it's a humble home or a home that's actually expensive and prestigious and all of that, I put in the same effort. It's the
Hmm.
same. So I compare myself to a portrait photographer. Not
Right.
everybody's going to be a supermodel, but you still
Right.
have to put them in their best light.
Exactly. And that being able to capture the nuances of a place is super important. Super important to have a a connection to the house and know what it is you're attempting to portray. One of the things that's interesting for me right now is generationally, people like different sorts of things. I've been really noticing in the most recent past that young millennials, and I guess that would be Gen, who would that be? Is it Gen Y? Is it Gen? I'm a boomer, so I don't have all these things
Okay,
quite.
I
Um,
think we're Zena, but I'm not sure. I don't know.
well, in any case, they like images that are straight on. And I have personally always loved images that are on diagonals that capture a flow to the space. But they're liking the more cozy look of things that are just right in your face. And I think it's kind of an interesting thing that I think that the way imagination works through society is reflected in the way in which people want to see images, if that makes any
Okay,
sense.
so I have a few thoughts to share on that. I don't believe in hard and fast rules. This
Right,
is the best. This always shoot straight on, always shoot sideway,
right,
or because the fact is there's each room has probably one best
mm,
angle.
right.
And to be fair, the
Like
straight on
people.
exactly. To be fair, the straight on shot they work because of the symmetry.
Hmm.
But for me, I go to the straight on shot when I'm not inspired, usually. When
Hmm.
it's my base, and then I need to
Right,
dig further, and then you will find the right angle from
right,
there. It's also a phase because they look so good, you tend to in your path as a photographer, that's a phase where, oh, I'm only gonna shoot straight on, and that's gonna be my
right,
style. It's not a
right,
style, it's a phase, and then
right. No.
you'll outgrow it.
But the other thing that happens a lot I see in photography is that a photographer will need to use a wide angle lens to get everything that they need to get into the room. And sometimes they do it beautifully, sometimes they don't. Sometimes you'll see distortion. But the ones that do it very well, sometimes they can shoot a photo that is so beautiful and looks so large that when the person who comes to see the house sees it, they are disappointed because it looked
Mhm.
better in the photographs online than it does when you get there. And I think there's a fine balance between being realistic and shooting something so that it looks phenomenal, to making sure that you never want someone walking in through the front door and being disappointed. You want them to feel like the house looks like what they saw online and like they imagined it to be.
Well, it's you can compare that to a dating profile, basically. It is. I mean, if you go, you can
I
hire
love
a
that.
professional photographer that's who's gonna make you look like maybe crazy beautiful, even use artifacts that would not be. But the reality, and I really believe that's the truth, though, because the reality is you want the best representation of what is. And having a wide angle, that's also a phase, by the way, in doing everything wide angle. Um, it's almost like it's over promising and under delivering and setting
Right,
people for disappointment, and it's a bad way to start a business relationship. My photos are true to size. You know,
right,
I don't think I don't believe people want to live in bowling alleys. I think
right.
what they're looking for is the cozy moment. Oh,
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
can curl up with a book next to the fireplace. You're not gonna get that feeling from a wide angle.
Right. No, that's true. That's true. And the thing that people don't understand about the realtor has a special relationship with their photographer, their
Hmm.
videographer, their 3D tour person. They also have a special relationship with the stager. They have a special relationship with the people that do the work on the house. They have a special relationship with the inspectors who come to do the work on the house.
Hmm.
Um, there's a lot that goes into prepping a house for sale and making it look as great as it possibly can, and at the same time presenting it faithfully, truthfully, and in such a way that the online marketing matches um, with what the person sees when they come to see the home. And it's a very fine art of it's a very fine balance that you're reaching there.
Hmm.
I recently had a very beautiful mid-century modern. It's closing escrow on Monday at 2967 Shasta. That was a beautiful time capsule. The house is a super fixer, like super fixer. There's a beautiful looking deck that is not safe to walk on. There is no water on at the house because the plumbing has failed. The electrical is knob and tube. Um, we put new carpets in, we put new flooring in. We did not make an attempt to show it any differently really than what it was, because I wanted to make sure that whoever bought it understood what they were getting into. I mean, we
Hmm.
had reports that totaled over $300,000 in work on that property. And I didn't want someone buying it and thinking, oh, I'm going to just move in, because you can't move in when there's no water. And you can't get insurance for the most part anymore
Hmm.
if you have knob and tube. Um, so there's a fine line in all of this stuff in the way things are presented, and realtors are forced to make these kinds of decisions with their clients, sitting down with them, talking with them about all of it. And sometimes, like my photographs on that house, if you were to see those photographs and know nothing about the disclosure packet, you would be like in love and want to be there. And as it happens, the people who bought it are going to be able, they have a deep enough pockets, they can do all the work. And the house, which sold for $1,470,000, when they do this work on it, will be worth easily 2.5 million. But they have
Hmm.
to do the work, you know. So,
Yeah.
there's part of that in your work too, where you're showing the house in its best light, but you're not going to absolutely gloss over problems, I would guess, when you're showing a house to
No,
someone.
but I do want them to fall in love with the potential in that case. I mean, there's two
Exactly.
things. There's falling in love with the potential, and one of my clients does a lot of probate work.
Yes.
Um, so those homes, I always try to honor the history of the home. So
Right.
starting with the hands that build the house, which is, you know,
Hmm.
it's rare these days to be selling a handmade product. That's a handmade
Right,
product.
right.
And also, I think honoring the life of the person who recently passed away, and you know, thinking about how, you know, thinking about them as I'm shooting.
Hmm.
And oftentimes, I go another step is thinking, what if I somehow I could salvage this house from being torn down by a developer and developed
Yeah,
on top of
yeah.
it.
Oh
So
my
those are like
goodness.
the levels that I go to bring out, even if it's a probate. You know what? It's a probate, but it this home has um cascading wallpapers that are very retro,
Yeah.
and for you as the agent, that's a story. You can put that on Instagram. You
Oh,
can.
absolutely. That can be part of what you show. I know
Mhm.
I'm always handling houses right now where you know the house is older. I'll walk into a listing appointment. It will be like a Julia Morgan, and I'll find that the people that own the house painted the wood walls white, or
Okay.
they've yeah, exactly. I know, I know. I handled a Queen Anne in Alameda one time where the president of the Historical Society came in, and the house on the outside was a pristine
Hmm.
Queen Anne, and then you walked in and it was like Dwell magazine had barfed all over the place. And
Okay.
and the head of the Historical Society just stood in the foyer and cried because every shred of everything that was period detail had been taken out of it. It wasn't my fault. I hadn't done it.
Um,
She, of course, somewhat blamed me for it, but I didn't have anything to do with that. I personally believe that you should leave as much of the character of the house when it's an older home as possible. And if you're going to present it, not screw anything up, give somebody the opportunity to do it right. I was on tenterhooks when I was selling that beautiful mid-century house in Berkeley because I was terrified that a flipper would be the one that would get it. And then they would just not appreciate what was there and they would tear everything out and turn it into white and gray, like you see everything these days. And fortunately, the people that bought it are in love. And that's because my marketing was targeted towards people that love things like, you know, Escherichs and Eichlers and things like that. I went
and
to those sources.
to that point, it is helpful to have in mind a specific buyer
Hmm.
to market to. So that's another thing that I do is I kind of have an intention when as I'm shooting. I always start with an intention toward the buyers who are going to be moving
Hmm.
in. So it's always like it's going to be sweet families, if it's a family, whatever I picture in
Right.
my
No,
mind, and
absolutely.
who will connect, you know, with this house.
Exactly. Like I have a listing right now that's on the market, beautiful, expensive house in the Berkeley Hills, very idiosyncratic floor plan because the people built it for themselves. It is not a family home
Hmm.
because you don't have the rooms that would normally be together. Like normally young families want to have the parent and the kids all on one level.
Hmm.
And this house does not have that. And it doesn't have the big open space that now people tend to want. It has some open space, but it also has discrete spaces because these people like nooks and crannies. And they
Hmm.
built it that way. But
Yeah.
it's an exquisitely beautiful house. And what is fascinating to me is the people that have been coming to see that house have been Nobel laureates in chemistry, all kinds of scientists,
And we of
extremely
course in
famous
Berkeley.
psychologists. The
Hmm.
house is attracting what it should attract, which are very, very successful, incredibly intelligent people. So it's fun that way. You can see what a house is going to attract. Now, you visualize and I visualize, and then we sync up what our visualization is. And then by coordinating those things, we present a unified front out into the world in the work that we do, which I think is marvelous.
And that's where I find that, you know, I did real estate for 10 years. And so I've met hundreds of buyers and shown
Yes.
probably thousands of properties. So I have a Rolodex of people that I've actually
You have
met.
a unique perspective on for photographers, by the way, because the fact that you
Yes.
come from real estate
Yeah.
is wonderful in terms of the work that you're going to do out in the world because you know what buyers want and
Yeah.
you know what will affect the sellers and all of that. So that's just absolutely superb.
It is. I
Well,
think it makes a difference.
I think it does too. I think it makes a huge difference. And I think you're just wonderful. I have really enjoyed this conversation.
Oh,
And
thank you.
if someone wants to find you and wants to hire you, how can they find you and hire you?
They can go on my website, pierregalantphotography.com. Galant is spelled with just one L,
Okay.
but the cat Gallant. And what else? Oh, Instagram, same thing, at Pierre Galant.
Okay.
So Pierre is a French name, Pierre.
Yes. Yes. Wonderful. Well, what a pleasure to meet you. And if I ever have need of you, I will hire you post haste because you're amazing. So, uh,
Yes, I love to travel to new areas, especially in California. So keep me in mind. I mean, there's really good photographers up there. I know a few of them personally.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah,
But it's always good to meet another wonderful, wonderful artisan practitioner of photography. It's marvelous. So
thank
thank you
you.
for your time today. I really appreciate it. And
I
that's all for
appreciate you.
now. Take good
Yeah, I'm gonna look
care.
up your listing.
Thank you for joining me on this episode of the Realizations Podcast. I hope our conversation has shed light on the true essence of real estate and the people behind it. As we wrap up, I want to extend my gratitude to our listeners for their support and engagement. Your feedback drives the heart of this podcast, and I look forward to continuing this journey with you. If you enjoyed today's episode, please consider subscribing to the Realizations Podcast and leaving a review. Your support helps us reach more listeners and spread our message of positivity in the real estate industry. Until next time, remember to keep an open mind, embrace empathy, and always seek the good in every situation. I'm Andrea Gordon signing off from Realizations. See you next time.